right after teachers administer an assessment to their students, what do they do next? What is the next thing that they do? And so as we go across the state and we start having these conversations, there's a few things that we'd like to kind of focus on today. And the first one, for our Aware Premium districts, the districts that have subscribed to Aware Premium, if you do not have Aware Premium, we will share some information about that a little bit later in the session about who you can reach out to for more information. And so we'll go ahead and also share that in the chat as well. You'll just be reaching out to sales@eduphoria.net, and they can provide you all with additional details for Aware Premium and demos and stuff like that. So with that being said, I'd like to go ahead and look at a teacher account. And what we're going to do is I came in here. I'm going to copy this option here. On the left-hand side, there's a navigation panel here. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so y'all can see a little bit better. There's a navigation panel here that we will be clicking on single test analysis. So once again, the assessment has been administered. Students have already submitted their answers. They've already been scored, so on and so forth, right? You'll see a list of these assessments here that you can go ahead and select from. Or if you already have filters, you'll see that you're filtering out this information here. So I'm going to search for that specific assessment that I know has been administered already to my students. And I'm going to go ahead and open that up in single test analysis. When I open that up in single test analysis, or STA for short, it's going to bring me to this first screen right here, which is going to show me my performance summary. So when we think about the data that we normally would see in quick views, over here in the quick views icon, this is sort of raw data that we see in a table form. Well, what we see here is data in a little bit more graphical representation of this data that you all would see in that table form. So here I see my different performance levels that I have for this assessment. So I see my did not meet, and I see that there are 19 out of 64 students that fell in this did not meet section. I also see my approaches, same thing. I see that fraction there. I see the meets, and I see the masters as well. All of this information is great information because it's calling out how your students are doing. And we should see something similar to a bell curve in this sort of data view here, or in this representation here. If you notice, we do have some filtering options here on the very top. We do have the ability to filter by demographics. So I can click on the little demographics icon. I can come down here and look at certain options here. So if I wanted to see how my emergent bilingual students are, I can come over here, select those students, and then I can go ahead and hit apply, and that data will automatically be filtered out. Granted, this teacher only has one EB student, so that's why you kind of see just that one student populated over here, right? If I want to clear out filters, I'd hit clear. If I want to go and look at other identifiers, so potentially student identifier here, I can come over here on the right-hand side and maybe even select special ed indicator, and I see how my special ed students are doing, right? So this is some good information to have, because what we're seeing here is, okay, I have some students that fell and did not meet. Okay, I understand that. I have 8 out of my 20 that are here in this group. Then I have some that fell in approaches, and then so on and so forth. Well, this also helps you all highlight those wins, because these students have worked on something, they've, are doing better. So I can click on a specific performance level. So as you can see, it's kind of highlighted in gray right here. And then if you go down to the bottom, I get to see who that student is. And again, this is all demo data, so no real district in here. So I see the student here. I can see all of their demographics here as well. And then I can also see, their school that they are a part of. If I had additional rights, I would be able to see that as well. And then the raw score that they received. Okay. So in addition to this filtering bar here, I do have the option to deselect the, selection that I made earlier by clicking this performance level label. And then I can go ahead and hit apply, and then it sort of should refresh your data here for you. And then if you wanted to look at these students, it's easy to see if they would have just answered one more question correctly, they would have moved up one level, right? So kind of having this idea of, okay, where are these students at and can we move them up? So here I see my list of students that fell in the approaches section here, or did not meet, excuse me. Then I can resort this using the column header at the very top, click on it one time or two, and now I can see in descending order the students that could potentially be moved up one performance level if they just answered one more question correctly, right? So this is a great way to kind of look at that information and try to figure out who we could actually move up. And sometimes we call these bubble students that are in between the two performance levels that we can potentially work on and help them move up just a little bit as well. What's great about this also is maybe I want to create a monitor group from this list specifically. I have the option because I'm already filtering out to only see these students here. I have the option to click on create a monitor group from this list. What this will allow me to do is over time, I can apply this specific monitor group to specific data sets. So quick views that we are looking at for maybe the second unit assessment that we are administering to our students, right? I want to see what interventions did I provide to these students that are actually working, or if they're maybe not working, right? Do we have some sort of software that we're providing? Did we provide some additional tutorials for these students, right? And so now I can use that monitor group as well, or create a monitor group from here to actually see that information. Also, if you wanted to see demographic distributions here, I can click on that and I can see the demographics here as well. So it's a great way to kind of highlight how your students are performing, and then look at the different performance levels with all of these other options here for student lists and the demographic distribution. The second option here is called the Learning Standard Summary. This is a great place to kind of come in here and kind of look at this. You do have toggles where you can say, you know what, I only want to look at my DOK1 questions. So I see my DOK1 questions here. And if I hover over it, I can see the standard itself, the DOK1, and then how many students got this correct. And if I click on it, it'll actually reload the data at the very bottom, and it'll show me that this was a DOK1 question on question number 12, and I had a DOK2 question with the same standard on question number 1. So I get to, look at this information. What's sometimes a little bit more powerful is maybe principals may ask you, what is your lowest performing standard? On the right-hand side, next to where it says primary standards, notice you can switch out between primary and secondary. I can actually click on the AZ standard dropdown, and I will have the option to sort this by showing the minimum percentage. So that is showing me that this one, 5.3K, right here, is my lowest performing standard. But also, this is in DOK2, and then DOK1, I have it at 59.38% of my students got it correct. And I can see that information over here as well. So it's question 5, question 3, question 7, and question 8 are all this 5.3K, right? And so now I have some information to kind of go back and look at when I start looking at the item response analysis, which is another tab in single test analysis that you'll be able to go ahead and select from. Here we see a nice graph of how students have answered, or the amount of points that students have earned on each of these questions. And I also see the scoring method that was applied here. So correct or incorrect is the first color. Then we have points per task, or also constructed response, partial credit, which matches what you all would see on STAR. And then we also have the dependency scoring as well. What's great about this is, notice there's nothing down here yet, right? But once I click on the question, it'll actually show me that information here where I can see some additional details. And so now I see a preview of the question. I see the answer choice underlined. And then on the right-hand side, I see the answer distribution. So remember, in quick views, this was similar data that we could see in a specific quick view in our fourth quick view template, right? The student individual responses. Well, here I see this in this data view here, or this view here, And I can see that 70.31% of my students selected C, but I had 17% of my students select A. Okay. And so I can come down here and notice that I have a table that will appear at the very bottom, and it allows me to do a couple of things. We have two filtering options. The first one is to filter and only show me 0 points earned. And so I could see all of those students that did not get this question correct. Or if we want this to be a little bit more powerful, remember I was saying that A is probably, one that we need to have a discussion with our students if they selected A. There's a filtering option right here that I can go ahead and select from. And then I can go ahead and add a simple letter A. And now I have 11 out of the 19 students that took this assessment selected A. So if I needed to start looking at small group interventions or small group instruction to bring them up to my table or my desk and have a discussion with them, this is going to be one of those ways that I can start to identify those specific students, right? So this is a great tool for us to kind of go in there and look at exactly what they selected on this assessment or on this question specifically. You can go in through and click on the next questions. You can use the left and right arrows right here next to selected response. Notice this one is text entry. And then if I look down over here, I see the number 372,385. I see that I had 81% of my students get this incorrect. Okay, maybe this was a poorly written question, or maybe we didn't ask it correctly. And then I have to come back down here and look at how they actually typed in the information, right? So this student got it right, but there might have been a space here. So maybe when we authored the question, we didn't author it correctly, right? So we have to kind of think of those things and look at them and maybe consider, do we want to zero this out? Do we want to set the item weight to 0 so that it doesn't impact the student score, right? So these are a couple of things that we would have to look at and kind of take into consideration. There are some other options in here. Oops, let's see if I can find another one. Here's another text entry right here that we can see. Again, this one, not very many got it right. I think there was only maybe one or a few students that got it right. So have to look at that too. And then we also have, this is drag and drop and how students are performing on this. They're dragging and dropping these numbers in here as well. And if we wanted to see exactly what the student did, we can click on their name because you can see it's hyperlinked. I can select their name and then notice what I see here. So this student did not put anything in this selected field or in this field. So if I click and hold this button down here on the bottom left, it will allow me to see the correct answer choice. And so I can see that correct answer choice here. That's what it should be, 13479. The student put 1304, I guess, right? So we have to look at this as well and maybe, consider, are we writing the correct question or not? We also have a drag and drop, another drag and drop here, same thing. And then I think the last one, oops, I guess my constructor response didn't show up in this one for some reason. So the last one here is just another text entry that y'all would be able to see. So this is single test analysis. Honestly, this would probably be the first place that teachers will go to start analyzing data once they administer this assessment. And so once again, I am thinking about these questions, questions 3, questions 5, question 7, question 8, and then potentially, if I wanted to look at question number 6 too, I can also look at that as well for my students. And so the reason I'm calling those things out is because you do have an option. Teachers are the only ones that can do this. Teachers can actually go in there and create a retest for their students. When they go into author, they're going to be clicking on the post-assessment activity or post-assessments right here. When they click on that, they will see a list of assessments that are available to them to go ahead and create a post-assessment activity like a retest or a reflection for them to administer it to their students. So here I search for that specific assessment that we were looking at just a moment ago. I have the option to preview the test under the actions column here. And when I preview that test, this is what it's going to show me. This is what it's going to look like. The same thing that the students would see in the UI, right? If I want to go ahead and click and create a retest, I can go ahead and click on the little plus sign, click on create retest. And now what Aware is doing is it's looking at what was on the original assessment. That means that if this assessment was a district assessment that you all administered prior, great. I'm looking at that assessment as the system is looking at it, and it's saying, okay, what are the items that you all have in this assessment? Let's go ahead and look at this so that we can create a blueprint for you to go ahead and retest your students. So earlier, I was talking about those questions that I wanted to go ahead and focus on, right? So it was like question number 3, questions number 5, all of them that say 5.3K, question number 7, and question number 8. And if I wanted to include question number 6, I could, right? So now let's think about the process that we have. We did the initial teach, we did some independent practice, we did the assessments, we assessed our students. We are going in there, we're providing the or reviewing the analysis of how the students performed, and now we are providing some intervention. And after all the intervention has been completed, then we can go ahead and potentially create a retest for them. When we create this retest, we have the option to go in there and say, only show me these items, because I'm only going to test those students that missed these questions, right? I don't need to test the ones that they got it correct. So I get to deselect the ones that I don't want to include. And then I'm going to come over here and click on the bottom right, continue, to take me to the actual blueprint, and I can see what is in the system. So we are looking at your item bank. And again, this is important for your teachers to have access to an item bank. So it may be one item bank or it may be multiple item banks that they might have access to. And if you all need information about item banks, please reach out to sales@eduphoria.net, and we will have someone reach out to you to schedule some sort of a meeting with you about that. So here I see the question type, I see the item type specifically, I see the specific item bank that we're using, the complexity, as well as a standard. And if there's any secondary standards, you see those secondary standards appear here as well. On the right-hand side, I see a status where it shows a check mark for if there was a match that was found. And if there was a question that had to be replaced, there's a little triangle with an exclamation point on it. Nothing bad, just saying that we replace it with a different type of question. And if you want to preview any of those questions, you can click on the little preview icon and see what that specific question looks like, as well as if you wanted to look at the standards or the DOKs also. Once you're ready to go, all you have to do is click generate test or generate retest. And this is only for teachers. And the data that they're collecting is only going to be available to the teacher to analyze, right? This is not some data that all of your school leaders or your district leaders will have access to. And again, you see the same thing that you all would normally see in your actual assessments, right? And when you're building them out, I may do something like 5.3K and 5.2C, right? I just want to make sure that I know that this is only for those students, and then I can come over here and actually set the status to pen or to active so that you can administer it to your students. And if there's any other settings that you all need to adjust in online, you would adjust those settings as well. So this is a great option for you all to do that. And once again, that's under the author tab, and you're going to click on post-assessment activities, and you'll find that assessment here in the list. And when you all click on that plus sign, there's also an option for you all to click on a reflection as well. And so if I wanted to go ahead and administer that assessment or administer a reflection, I can select create a reflection. And essentially a reflection is just having your students reflect on the work that they've done. So sometimes we're asking them, was the retest easier or harder? Yes or no, if, they felt it was easier. So you all can have them create or answer a reflection. There are essentially just two item types, an open-ended question and a multiple choice question. Reflections are not graded, and it's just to gather some additional information that you all would look at to help inform what you all do in the next unit or in the next week, right? So this is a great way to do that. And then all of that data that is being collected is going to be analyzed using single test analysis. So just come over to single test analysis, look at this information here with the retest, and you'll be able to see how your students are performing. So here's one of the retests for this retest that I did for the student. and then I can click on it and I can see exactly how they answered, right? So this is a great way to utilize retest after you all have already administered that initial assessment. So that was a lot of information. Those are some of the Aware Premium features that we are talking about. And I think next week we will have Jason that will be talking about multi-test analysis for teachers and then some additional information as well. And with that, Paige, I would like to send it over to Paige to have the next discussion about about Strive, excuse me. And then also just note that there will be a presentation that will be sent out to you all with the links to all of the things that we are actually working on here as well or discussing.
All right, thank you very much. Well, is at the beginning of the year, we recommend that every teacher go in and update their profile. You can do it from any screen in Eduphoria. You can do it from the home screen. There'll be two buttons that say update profile. And then once I'm in the system, I will either have a picture if I uploaded a picture, or if I didn't upload a picture, my initials will be in a circle up here. And I can click on my initials or my face and say that I want to edit my profile. For teachers, the important things are we want to make sure they have the campus where they're evaluated and only the campus where they're evaluated. This is going to make them show up on the screen, on the page for every campus that they check. So it doesn't matter if they do some work on that campus. What matters is where they are evaluated. So even itinerant teachers have a primary campus and a primary evaluator. That's what they should select. If they choose another campus, you'll notice it doesn't unselect the one that I had before. So they have to remember to scroll through the list and deselect the place they're no longer teaching and make sure they have only one campus there. In terms of name changes, it depends on how your system is being managed. So if your district is using Active Directory to manage your teachers, then changing this here is going to get replaced overnight. It's going to be set back because it's being managed somewhere else. So anybody who needs a name change needs to talk to the district and find out. Most likely it needs to be changed in HR first. And then if you are using some sort of automation, that will push it down. There are some fields in here that show up in the profile, but you'll notice I can't click on any of them. Those are things that the district can import, but we're not asking users to do it because with numbers and things, there's too many opportunities for typos. So it's better to import that data directly. As I said, you can add a picture to your profile. All the teachers can do that. They would just click and upload that file. It's not a requirement, but if you don't have your face, it'll have your initials there. On the next screen, I'm going to select my job role. It always defaults to teacher because that's what the largest number of our users are. So if you're not a teacher, you would change it to principal, vice principal, or whatever suits your position most. But the majority of your people will be teachers. Once they select that, they're going to have two more screens. The other job roles do not have these two screens, but teachers do. They need to select the subject area. And again, this is their current teaching assignment, not everything that they're certified for. And then on the next screen, they will select the grade levels for their current teaching assignment again. So we want that to be really specific. There are some things in the professional learning side where people can be enrolled in professional development or they can have some communication that we want to target. And so we want to make sure that this is accurate information. Then I'm going to click the next button. And the last thing it's going to ask everybody, teachers and non-teachers, is for a security question so that you can do electronic signatures. You do have a list of questions to choose from, kind of like you do with your bank. And then you pick your question and type your answer. You won't have to remember the question. It will prompt you and say, here's your question. You do have to remember how you typed the answer, and it is case sensitive. So I did not capitalize. I have to remember that I typed all lowercase, and then I'll save my changes. That should happen at the beginning of each year just to make sure that everybody is in the right spot and getting the right information. Okay, I'm going to go back into Strive and talk about what happens next for those teachers. Um, they're going to go in and have some things that they need to do at the beginning of the year. So I will see my process and I can see that there are tasks within each one of these steps. When I open up that beginning of the year, I see things that have plus signs. If it has a plus sign, that means it's for me to do. So I'm going to go in and do my self-assessment by clicking on that plus sign. Hopefully your district has set up due dates that that data feeds into the overview page and the activity tracker and kind of helps everybody stay on task. And if a specific number of things are required, I will see how many are required. Right now it's saying I have completed 0 out of 1 because I haven't done my self-assessment yet. But I would just click on that plus sign in order to start that document. I also have a professional goal and a student growth goal to complete. While I have already completed one and my plus sign is grayed out, you'll notice when I float over it, it is still an active link. So if I needed to create a second goal, or if I've decided I'm not going to submit this one and I want to create a different goal to submit instead, then I could do that because this is still an active plus sign and it will still allow me to create an additional goal. When I do click to create the goal, I'm going to get, I call it a wizard, our developers call it a modal, but I'm going to get this little box that walks me through what I have to include. Anything that has an asterisk is required. So my goal statement is required. My target completion date is required. I would, the start date should be set to the beginning of the instructional year, and the target date should be set to when you think you'll finish that goal, which may be the end of the instructional year, or it might be earlier. If you're doing it for a semester class, your goal might be finished in December. You are also required, this required right here goes with success criteria, so you have to have something in that box. And then you have to have at least one action item. So this is required that you have at least one thing down here. Won't let you click this create professional goal until you've met those requirements. I do have a couple of recommendations. One is that for every goal, you put the year at the beginning of your goal statement. I will show you that here. So I have in my goal statement 25-26 for my professional goal. And then for the student growth goal, I recommend the year plus the subject area and grade level of your student growth goal, because this is going to align with where students are measured for that teacher. So I want to make sure that whatever we're using as the student measurement for my classes, this is where I'm going to write my student growth goal. This is where I need to have my formal observation and my summative related to this, so that when we're doing a correlation between my evaluation scores and my students' growth scores, we're comparing apples to apples because I was observed in the same class that my students were measured. So I would recommend those things as you're talking to teachers about that. I can also see the due date. This is the due date when I have to submit my goal. So you'll notice my goal is still unsubmitted. I've written it. I've been working on it a little bit, but I have not submitted it to my appraiser yet. I have until September 26th to do that. But that does not mean that that's when I'm going to complete it. My target completion date is way later in the year, but I have to have it submitted by that due date that was on the goal when I first looked at it. I have a place in here where I can select the standards. These are the t-test dimensions that are related. Actually, I think, yeah, these are the t-test dimensions that are related to my goal. I always tell teachers to select goal setting, no matter what their goal is about. This one should show up when a principal's looking at all the data. It should show up under 4.2. So go ahead and select that one. And then any others that are related to the topic of the goal, you can collect or select. Teachers are always wanting to make sure they get credit for everything they should get credit for. So they might want to overcheck here a little bit. I want to make sure that I'm focusing on the primary elements of my goal, and that I'm not making it so broad that I can't accomplish it. So I want it to be an achievable goal. I had to create at least one action item in order to start my goal, but I can continue to add additional action items throughout the year. When I do create an action item, it tells me that the date is optional, but I like to have the dates on there. I'm a visual person. And so if I go back to my process and I look at the goals, this timeline has these tick marks that are going across it. On my professional goal, I've only added one action item so far, and I'm already past what I set as my due date for that. Don't know if I've actually completed it or not, but I'm past the due date. I can also see this dotted line, and that's where I am. That's how I know that I'm past the due date for that action item. And I'm right on top of the due date for my second action item in my student growth goal. So these are going to tell me where I am and what I have coming up. And that visual reminder is helpful to me. If I don't put dates on my action items, then I just have a horizontal line and my dotted lines showing me kind of how much time I have left. but it doesn't tell me where I am in terms of all the steps that I created for myself. So I want to go ahead and put those action items in there, and then I can add evidence to my goal throughout the year. There are 4 types of evidence. I can do text, which is just anecdotal evidence. I'm going to tell a story about something that happened and how it's related to my goal. I can upload a file, and that can be any file type. So it could be a Word document that was a lesson plan, or it could be a spreadsheet that was some test results, or a spreadsheet that was my parent call log, because I think one of my goals was about parent communication. So it could be any file that I wanted to upload. I would just find it, and then in the description, explain what it is and why I think it's related to my goal. I can also do a link. So if I have a teacher web page for my communication goal, maybe I put a hit counter on the parent page on my teacher website, and I want to show that I've increased the hits throughout the year. So I could put a link to that and explain what that's all about. Or if one of my action items was to do some research on communication strategies, I might upload the link to an article that I read and how I came to the decision about what I'm working on. And then the final evidence type is a workshop portfolio entry. When I select that one, if your district is using our professional learning to monitor, then it will show all the courses that I've taken. I can select the course that I think is relevant, and then I can describe what I learned in that course and how it applies to my goal. So I can continue to collect evidence for all of the actions that I said I was going to do. Doesn't have to be an equal number, but if I said I was going to do something, I should have some proof over here in the evidence. Last thing about goals, all of them, all of our documents also have a place for messaging so that you can have continuous conversations throughout the year in your active goals. I can send a question out to my appraiser. It will date and timestamp it, say who wrote the message. And when I click the send button, not only does it document that information here, it also sends an email to my evaluator saying that there's a message out there. They will come back here and answer it. And so I will have the back and forth thread right here in my goal, so I can go back and refer to that as needed. So I would do that by clicking the send button after I've typed my message in there. Between now and September 26th, which is the deadline for my district, I need to come in and say, okay, I think this one's ready for my principal to look at, and I'm going to click that submit button. When I click the submit button, you'll notice the status over here changes. So I'm going to say submit for approval, and now it says that my goal has been submitted. As soon as my evaluator approves it, it will get changed to approved. Some of these things will be locked down and I won't be able to edit them anymore. I shouldn't say that. You can edit it, but if you choose to edit after it's approved, then it has to go back through the approval process so that the appraiser is always up to date on any changes that you decide to make. And if you do make a change, the history, what it looked like before, will be down here. And then they can look at what you've changed it to up here and decide if they're going to approve those changes. Okay, so that's what the goals process looks like for your teachers. From there, they need to go in. They've figured out how to complete the documents they need to do and create their goals and submit their goals. And after that, the principals pretty much take over and start doing walkthroughs and observations, but they need to go in and view those documents. So when I come in here and look in any of my steps, I'll be able to see if there's a document there that my principal has completed that I need to look at. So I can open it up and see what all it says. Again, the messages are here. If I have a question about it, I can send that question to my appraiser, but I'll also be able to see the status up here. They will be able to see when they did it, when they made it viewable, and also when I looked at it. And that is an important part of the process. We want to make sure teachers are looking at those documents and learning from them so that they're growing and getting closer to that designation that we want them to have. On some documents, like the observation, when I open up the observation document, again, I can view all of the things that were marked. I can see all the evidence that my principal typed in about what this rating is based on. So I can scroll through and look at everything about my observation. Again, I have the messaging so I can ask questions. I've just changed it to be viewed on by opening it up. But when I look in the upper right-hand corner, there's also a button that says sign. So I can go in and sign that document. I want to make sure that my principal wants me to sign it ahead of time. we are probably going to have a post-observation conference, and so they may want me to wait until then. But when it's my turn to sign, I will go in and I will see neither myself or my evaluator has signed it yet. The appraiser should always sign last, so I should be the first signature, and I'm going to go in and click on it. I'm going to type in my Eduphoria username. So there it is. I'm going to type in my password, and I hope I did that right. And then I'm going to type in my security question answer. And then I cannot hit the, well, I can hit the enter key, but it's not going to do anything. So I have to deliberately click on electronically signed document. Just hitting the enter key will not submit your signature. But once I've done all those three things and I click on that button, it is going to put a blue check mark there showing that I have signed. And my principal will be able to see that I have signed as well. So now it's going to show viewed. When I go back to my process, it still says electronic signature required because I'm only one of us has signed it. So that is really applying to my principal now. But it will show that this document is not 100% complete because only one of those signatures has happened. That second signature should happen after the post conference. So it's not a problem that it's saying that. That's just giving you the status of what's going on. Um, so that's what signatures look like. The other things that might happen in the year, there is a reflections document that may or may not be required for teachers. They need to make sure they check and see if there are any other things in the process that have that plus sign for them to use. And then I would want to complete that before I go to my summative conference. I've got a due date on there that I should be turning that in. And then at the bottom of the page, there is a place for uploaded evidence. This is there for everybody, no matter what steps and tasks your district may have completed. This step is always there. And so I can go in. I always give the example when I was in the classroom, I loved To Kill a Mockingbird, and I thought my To Kill a Mockingbird unit was my best unit. Nobody ever evaluated me during that unit. So I might want somebody to see what I thought was some of my best stuff, and I could come in here and say, I want to attach To Kill a Mockingbird unit, and I could write a description about it. I could upload a lesson plan or a unit plan or a sample of a student project that came out of that unit or whatever evidence I want to include here. And then I would go and say, I think this relates to activities and differentiation of students and maybe classroom culture. So I would select those, I would upload my file and then click the upload button. And that unit that I'm uploading for my principal to review would show up under these three different dimensions when my principal goes to do my final summative evaluation. So I can put in evidence of anything else that I think is relevant to my evaluation, even if it didn't happen during a classroom walkthrough. Sometimes principals will ask teachers to upload evidence that's related to domain 4. So maybe I have some sign-in sheets where I attended some school community events and I could upload those as examples. My professional development should already show up. We checked the goal 4.2, so that would show up. If I have anything related to professional demeanor and ethics, I could put that in there too. But sometimes principals ask for help with that evidence because they don't have as much of that. And then I also want to talk just a little bit about how I'm going to do professional development. I have a couple of pieces of information already. I have a professional goal that I'm working on, and that goal was tagged to specific dimensions: knowledge of students, communication, classroom culture. So I have some things that I might need some assistance with. I also probably have my area of reinforcement and refinement from last observation. So I could go into the courses section to look for professional development. I can look for it in a variety of ways. I could type in a keyword at the top. I could look for, you know, different categories or credit types if I needed to. But my favorite one is this available frameworks, because this is where I will find T-Test V2, which is what my district is using. It's the locked framework. And then I can select from here knowledge of students, um, differentiation was, no, it was communication and culture, I think was what I had in my goal. So I will go select those three, and it's going to show me any that are linked to any of those dimensions. And so I might want to go in and read more about these or enroll in these so that I'm finding professional development that is specifically related to the goals that I have. If I, for my student growth goal, I think I need to know more about differentiation and activities. I could go in and find some examples based on those. It can be one or it can be multiples, and that will help me to narrow it down. I can tell the difference here. This is an online course, an e-course that I'll take on my own time at home. This is a course that has a specific date and time that I will show up to a physical space and take that course. So I can find professional development that way that's related to the things that I should be working on. I can also, when I go to my portfolio, see all of the courses I'm enrolled in now. I can see all the courses that I've completed this instructional school year. I do have a couple that are hanging out there that are old because they're online courses, and I just have been lazy and haven't finished my online courses. And then I also have my portfolio, which is going to show my full history, all the professional development that I've taken. When I click on portfolio, it will show all of those things over there. So I can go in 1 year at a time and look at the professional development that I have. I can also request credit for things that I took outside of the district. So if I went to the service center or I went to a conference and I want to get credit for that work, I can click on add a new portfolio entry. I will say what kind of entry it is. 90% of them are going to be an outside workshop or conference, but occasionally a district might have a professional development level, which is like a learning track. And if I have completed that professional development level and want credit for it, I would select that. And then sometimes teachers who are working on advanced degrees want to count some of their college courses as professional development credit, and that's up to the district to determine. So I would select, like I said, most of the time outside workshop or conference and click the next button. I would put the title. So I'm going to say it was an ESC workshop. I'm just going to call it ESC Connections because we have some of those going on right now. I would pick the date. We had one that happened on Tuesday. So it was yesterday, and it was from 9 to 3. So I would set my times here and then click the next button. I would say that I want 6 hours of credit for that. Pretty much everything is Texas SBEC credit. That's what I would submit for recertification. Only if it was approved GT hours would I request of those either other two types. So mostly I'm just going to say SBEC for everything. I'll click the next button. I can go in again and say this was related to, and I could say we talked about goal setting in that meeting yesterday. We also talked about data and assessment. And so I could find any others that we found in there that were related to that session. I would click next. If we had district goals in here, if your district has put their strategic goals, I could say that this is related to something that we did there. Maybe mine would be student success. And then I will click the next button. If I got a certificate, I could click and upload that here. If I did not get a certificate, I could either take a picture of the sign-in sheet that has my name on it, or take a picture of my name tag, or whatever evidence I have that shows that I completed that session and upload it here. And then when I save it, it's going to go into my portfolio list over here with this icon that looks like a brown, it's supposed to look like a leather portfolio. So that's the portfolio entry. And it tells me at the top that credit has been requested, but nobody has approved it yet. So I've put it in, I submitted a certificate and put all my information in there. And now somebody is going to go in and review that. Once they do review it, it will be added to my portfolio, and I'll be able to see it when I look at the whole summary, and it will show everything in there. I did mention the professional development levels is something that districts can set up a learning track or a learning path. I do have one that I have earned. So I had to take 18 hours that were specifically designated for this instructional coaching academy, specific courses, some online, some face-to-face. When I had completed all of those courses, I requested credit, and now it shows up as a professional development level up here at the top. So teachers will always be able to see that in their portfolios as well. So they can view all of that information.